Peace everyone, Unmask Art here. Welcome back to another paint and chat. I got a couple paintings that I need to finish up for the Evolve program, so I'm going to be doing that. And if you have any questions for me, don't hesitate to ask. Hope everyone's having a lovely week. This is actually going to be the last live stream for the year, too. Got a chess tournament coming up in a few days. I've been trying to study the past couple days, but it's not been going well. took maybe too long of a break from chess, and now I'm struggling to get back up on the horse. Oh, hey there, Krzysztof. How are you doing? I was just talking about chess too. Yeah, getting excited for my tournament, and I wanted to finish up these paintings here that I have left for block one. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just gonna try to have fun. I'm not going to stress out too much about it like I did the first tournament. Take my time. I'm gonna enjoy the games and take my time. That's the plan. Because too many of the games I was just too blitzy, way too blitzy, and it cost me for sure two of the games I played. The uh, the blitz mentality really cost me. Yeah, you could say that this is the last project for the year. I don't have anything I don't have anything else going on aside from these couple paintings that I want to finish up. I'm not really taking my time here trying to get through the first stages of this painting. It's not a super complex painting, but just got to get it done. All right, jump into the shadows here. Let's see here. Got a little shadow right here. Oh, hey there, Ozzy. Good to see you. I kind of sprung this live stream on everybody. To be honest, I wasn't 100% sure I was gonna even stream, but I needed the motivation to finish these paintings, and so I figured the best way is to just turn on the camera, hit go live, and get them done. Well, I did mention last week that I may stream this week, and this is the fruition of that possibility. It would be nice to chat with everyone. This will be the last stream. I leave on Sunday. My wife has been cooking up a bunch of food for the weekend. Hello, Afifa. Sergio, good to see you. Been a while. Appreciate that, Ozzy. Let's see. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of a shadow under the rabbits here. All right, that's some of the dark shadow. I have yeah, wait a minute. That doesn't seem right. Interesting. Oh, that must be the okay, that's the shadow. Oh, that's good to hear. Uh, Trishla, I am using oil paint. That's good to hear, Sergio. Yeah, very, very happy to hear that. Wait, why is there a separation here? This is all the dark value. You'll have to forgive me for spinning the painting around. I'm trying to do this quick. I actually have two more paintings that I have to do, this one and another one. And so I'm going to try to just do them both today, right now. So I'll probably be streaming for a while. Hello, Matt. Can I do a... I'm not sure what that is, to be honest with you. There's not much that I don't think I'm capable of doing with art, but I'd have to know what it is. And I'm not sure I know what that is. I've never heard of it. This is oil paint. Oh, you'll be cooking Saturday with the wife? Oh, thank you very much. Well, I hope you have a lovely weekend. Hope you make some tasty food. Oh, hi there, Con. Good to see you again. This is canvas paper, actually. So it has a really mild texture of canvas. It's like a fine tooth canvas. It's good for practice and whatnot. If these were my original works, then I would not be working on canvas. I don't normally work on canvas when I oil paint. Although I gotta say, I've sort of have been enjoying working on this canvas paper. Keeps things small and manageable when I have limited space. I have been enjoying these little oil painting projects that I've been doing with the Evolve program. I'm really looking forward to starting block 2 when I return from my chess tournament, because then I get to take my own reference photos. So these projects are the first block of the Evolve program. If you want to learn more about the Evolve program, I have links for it in the description. And as far as I know, there's still 1 or 2 spots available for the $100 off if you wanted to sign up. I've really enjoyed working through this program, which is why I convinced them to let me go through the entire thing. And though I haven't live streamed all 20 of the paintings that I've done for the program already, but I did live stream a number of them already. and they've been a lot of fun. And they, I can't say personally that I've learned anything because I've been oil painting for about a decade. So as a program designed to take somebody that doesn't know anything and teach them how to oil paint, it has given me a unique perspective, not just from the educational standpoint, but also uh, just the thought process. I would say the thought process is actually very similar to the way that I already thought about form and values, but you can never overstudy the basics. You really can't. So coming through and doing these fun little paintings have sort of just been a fun way for me to go back through some of the basics. And I think that it's even had a little bit of an improvement on my my own thought process, just sort of revisiting some of this stuff. You can only ever improve from doing it. And the program's designed to be a year long. I think you do 80 paintings, or no, I guess it'd be 70 paintings, somewhere like 70 paintings or in a year, which is, I mean, if you think about that, that's a crazy amount of paintings. You don't have to finish it in a year. I don't think a lot of people do actually, but to think that probably by this time next year, I'll have somewhere around 70 oil paintings on top of all of the other projects that I am going to be producing for the art club next year. It's it's kind of crazy to think about because I have no idea where I'm going to put them. I'm totally out of space on everything. Just no room for anything anymore. You guys will have to let me know what some of your goals are for the next year. What are some of your art goals? What are your aims or plans? I know a number of you are in the art club. What are some projects that you would like to see next year? Feel free to throw out any ideas that you have. I'd love to hear them. I actually don't have anything really concrete that I've thought about in terms of a specific idea. For sure, one of the things that I'll be doing is um, the right now the tentative name is monthly exercise, but I'm trying to come up with any possible name for a sort of monthly side projects that I give you. Um, I don't necessarily want them to be challenges. Like I don't want it described as a challenge or homework. And I'm not really fond of exercise either because that also doesn't seem very relaxing. Just simple projects to help refine the basics. next year back to colored pencils. Well, I mean, do whatever you enjoy. You know, if watercolors is sort of your calling, then by all means, just enjoy the process. All right, I need to clean out my brush a little bit. And then, let's see, I think, yeah, I'll probably do medium light. Yeah. I'm just cleaning my brush with a tissue. Give me a minute. I got a lovely gift. This is just one of the boxes, but these are, I don't even know what you call them. I thought they were what are they called? The ink tents. Ink tents. Um, Robin sent me these, and I haven't opened them yet. I have this, but she also sent me. I gotta dig it out. Excuse me for a second. I gotta get this out. She sent me this whole thing, these Inktense blocks, and so far all I did was take the plastic off so I could see what they look like. Or actually, no, I didn't take the plastic off. Yeah, they're still in the plastic. Um, I have no idea how to use them. I've never looked at any videos on how to use them or anything like that, but I've seen some stuff that looks sort of like watercolors. So I'm not totally sure what I'm going to do with them or when I'm going to use them, but I'll most likely do a live stream next year working with those for the first time after I figure out how to work with them. So that's one project that will be coming soon, I guess. So again, Robin, if you happen to catch the live stream later or if you're here in chat, thank you very much for those. Greatly appreciate that. All right, let's get some of this gray here. Not sure what to do here. Maybe because these are the same color. I have to follow the rules from the program. And that are the same exact color. So I'm trying to think of the best way to preserve my line art. Yeah, I can draw it in. I'll just draw it with paint later. Won't be that difficult. Oh, that's really cool. Producing your own watercolors. Sounds like fun. I may have mixed a little bit too much oil into this paint. Let's kind of watery, but it feels nice. I know I'm going to get comments later about people missing the live stream. So for those of you that tune in later and get to this point, I appreciate you watching it even after the live stream is over. Anyone else other than Sergio that has some fun plans for the next year? Practice your drawing skills. Yeah, practice. Practice makes perfect. You know, if you really want to quickly improve your drawing skills, I highly recommend learning the grid method. The grid method gives you a more logical way of understanding shapes and drawing things accurately. And then as you get better at using the grid method, you don't have to rely on it as much. You sort of internalize the grid and you can structure the shapes a bit more accurately freehand. That's how I learned to draw. I learned how to use the grid method when I was about 14, I think, 14 or 15. And I did it for years. I did it. I did it for about a decade, actually, the grid method, until finally I was like, you know what? Don't need to do this anymore. It sort of gradually doesn't need to be used. But I still use it like mentally. Like I still think in terms of the grid method when I am freehanding something. I just I more or less visualize the grid as opposed to uh, actually drawing it. I don't actually draw the grid anymore. I just think about it. Sure thing. Yeah. Anything I can do to help. You can ask me any questions you want. Oh, hey there, Shauna. Good to see you. I am using oil paint today. I'm finishing up the last couple paintings I have for the Evolve program before I move on to block 2 of the program. So this is painting 19, and I have painting 20 behind me that I will do after this one, possibly. I think what I'm going to try to do is just get the, I'm going to block in the shapes like I have here. And then after I have this, after I have both paintings blocked in, I will mix up the, what they call the add colors and start the gradient process. I really should have painted this shape in. Working around the black is tricky. Try to avoid things like this by painting the smaller shape and then paint the outside edge. Generally the best method. What brushes am I using? Hello, Beverly, by the way, and thank you. These are the brushes that come with the Evolve program. They are Old Holland brand synthetic. This is a number 6, or is it a number 9? It's a number 9. Yeah, maybe it is a number 6. I don't know. I think it's a number 6. Yeah, it's 6. I just checked the orientation of another brush. So it is indeed a number 6. And for any of you just joining, if you want more information on the Evolve program, then you can check out the links in the description. But I promise you it's worth it. I promise you the program is worth it. And you still have a chance to get $100 off the program as well by using the code that I also have in the description. I've been doing these paintings for a few months now, and one of the really fun things that unfortunately the past couple weeks I haven't had a chance to join, but the classroom live streams or group chats, I guess you could call them. But at any point during the day, people are just hanging out and painting together. And I've met a lot of really lovely people in the program. And I've hung out in the video chats for hours upon hours. I don't think I've ever spent less than like 3 hours in the video chat because it's really fun hanging out with all the people that are doing the program. And of all the people that I've talked to, when I was doing the initial review for the program, I spent maybe 10 or 12 hours in video chat talking to different people, asking them what they like about the program, and getting a much broader perspective on the program itself. And every single person that I spoke to pretty much had the same thing to say, and that is the program's worth far more than what they charge for it. And they would pay 2 or 3 times as much to get what they're getting out of it. Because this painting here that I'm doing, like I said, is one of 20. And this is my 19th painting in the past 3 months, I'd say. And when I finish, I get to go to block 2 and start doing more original paintings since I get to take the reference photos. But a lot of people have sold these projects, these homework projects that they end up doing for the program. Is they come out looking so nice with just very simple instruction, and sell them. Basically pays the program off just selling the homeworks. I mean, realistically, the time that you put into the paintings, you easily sell them for $100, and that's on the cheap side. You can sell them for twice that, realistically. And I'd say probably 15. Yeah, I'd say like 15 of the 20 paintings are sellable because the first few paintings that you do are really introductory, and so they're not really paintings in the sense that you would hang up on your wall. I say that as they're hanging on my wall. But yeah, you could totally pay the program off with just the first block. Alrighty, that is all put in. Cool, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Now time to clean my brush really quick. Don't be shy. You can ask more than one question in the span of 15 minutes. I love questions and I never get enough of them. So if any question pops into your head, I can assure you, perfectly fine to ask it. Switching colors, so I gotta change my or clean my brush. Okay, this and that. All of that. Okay. Just marking the spots. The paints look super buttery. Yeah, they look super buttery because you mix them with oil. So the consistency that oil paint comes out of the tube, this is probably something that not a lot of people that are learning oil paint really know. But depending on the color, the pigment, and brand and everything, uh, the viscosity that the paint comes out of the tube is almost never what you want to use to paint. No, I'm painting the background. So, also with the program, this is the oil. This is the medium that I'm using. This is linseed oil. So once I squeeze out some of my paint, I I mix a, a bit of the oil into it, the linseed oil, and I keep mixing it and I keep adding oil until I get that really nice buttery smooth uh, consistency. And it makes a world of a difference. Like It makes the paint so much more enjoyable to work with. I would say that the consistency that the paint generally comes out of a tube, it feels very dry and sticky. And the sort of texture that I like to work with is like the texture of mayonnaise. Yeah, it's like the texture of mayonnaise. That's the consistency that I look for. It has a really like a softness to it, and it's effortless when painting, and you want that effortlessness, right? You want it to be easy. Because these are really just the foundational layers that I'm applying. And even when I do the gradients, I'd still consider that just the foundation. If I was painting this for real, and by for real, I mean, here's the reference photo that they supply you with. It's obviously like a real photo of real glass figurines. If I wanted to truly try to capture that and all the detail and everything, I would not do it in one single layer. I would do it in probably four. Yeah, I'd say probably four layers. Over the span of like a week. But the introductory part is all about just single layer paintings, quick single layer paintings focusing on mixing on the canvas, creating gradients. It's sort of just a get your gradients good. For block one, it's all about the gradients. Pretty much nothing else. Just gradient after gradient. How do I know how much linseed oil to use? Um, you don't. Um, I use an eyedropper. I use a little eyedropper. And so for, let's say, like a little glob of paint about the size of your thumbnail, so a decent amount, not a lot or anything like that, but about that much glob of paint, um, maybe about five to six, 5 to 6 drops of the linseed oil. But I always err on the side of caution with the linseed oil because if you add too much, then it gets a little bit too runny, and you don't want your paint to be too runny uh, or fat. They call it fat. You don't want your paint to be too fat, and so add that like 5-ish range, 4 to 5. Mix it up. If you get the consistency you're looking for, that mayonnaise consistency, then you don't need to add any more. But you can always add more. So I always add what I think is going to be just right, but never too much. And then if I mix it up and it still feels a little bit too tacky, because that's what I look for. I look for it to be not tacky at all. Oil paint shouldn't be sticky. Should not be sticky because then it's just a pain. It clogs up your brush. It just is a mess to work with. Now there's definitely different situations on how you'd want your paint, but in particular, like stuff like this, especially like alla prima, where you paint the painting all at once. You don't want sticky, cloggy paint. That would just be a nuisance to work with. The other thing is The other thing is if you add too much oil, the paint becomes translucent, and sometimes that can be a headache as well. Because if your paint is translucent, then obviously it doesn't cover your canvas and very easily, so that can be a headache as well. Thank you, Infotech. Appreciate that. I believe if you go back a couple uh, live streams where I was oil painting, I I did one live stream where at the beginning I mixed all the paint and I showed you how I used the oil and stuff. I think I was at a little bit of a lack of adjectives on describing my consistency, but I'd say mayonnaise is the consistency that I look for. The oil paint is also Old Holland. So it's really, really nice quality oil paint. This is some of the best oil paint that I've ever used. And all of the supplies are included in the program. I don't know, I don't think I mentioned that yet. So when you buy into the program, um, the supplies that you'll use for all 70 paintings that you'll do throughout the 4 blocks, you get all the supplies. And you get really, really good supplies. I'd say you probably get at least $500 worth of supplies for the entire program. Some people some people add some extra colors later on. I believe it's block 3 that you start working with color. For blocks for the first block, you just get familiar with oil painting and you do simple projects like this. And then block 2 is kind of a two-parter. The first part is the first thing that you do is you make a shadow box, which you can just buy a cardboard box and boom, you have a shadow box. They show you how to set it up and do all that stuff, but you take reference photos. You take your own reference photos using your own still life objects, very very similar to this here. You take 10 photos, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not in block 2 yet, so I don't know the exact, but I'm almost certain you take 10 photos, and then they teach you what's called proportional drawing, which is very much like using the grid method, but instead of drawing a grid, you just use a ruler. I won't go into too much detail about it, but essentially it's using hypothetically, say you measure the head like of this rabbit. You use that measurement to determine how tall or how many heads the rabbit is and how wide it is. And so you choose one measurement, one unit that makes sense, and then you use that to determine, okay, well, how tall is the rabbit? Well, it's 4 heads high. And then you'll use that same measurement, like, okay, it's 1.5 heads wide on this way, and then use that measurement, okay, it's 2.25 heads distance from here to here, or something along those lines. That's essentially proportional drawing. And so you take your reference photos, then you draw them. So you spend first half of the block 2, learning the proportional drawing method and drawing your references, and then once you draw them, you paint them. And that's the 10 paintings that you'll do in block 2. And then block 3 is color. And I don't know much about block 3, but I believe it's very similar to this in the sense that you still use the gray tones, but for the light you use color. And I think 10 are your own photo references, and then 10 are predetermined references for those projects. Oh, hey there, Diane. Yes, the code is Unmask 100. So if you, oh, did somebody ask about that? Oh, hey there, Claire. Yeah, I've been working on my chest the last couple of days and all this morning. But I really wanted to get these last two paintings done before the new year so that I can start block 2 when I return from my tournament, because I'll return January 5th. All right, I think those shadows are done. A little bit on the edge here. There we go. Alrighty, now I gotta clean my brush once again. There's no info below. Is there no info? No, it's in the description, right? Caroline, did you find it? Let me know if you found it. I can't remember who it was, but I was actually in one of the video chats a couple weeks ago, and there was one of you, one of you hanging out that I had a chat with. I can't remember who it was though. Too many names. I'm surprised I remember as many people as I do, to be honest with you. I'm usually not that good at it, but over the years I've gotten pretty good with names. Still not 100% sure how it doesn't seem to ever work for me in person, because I've always been one of those people that as soon as I finish shaking your hand and you tell me what your name is, I've already forgotten what your name is. And I've tried all like the techniques, you know, the techniques to remember. You always say the person's name back, so you always try to say it in a sentence. So if they say their name is Rob, you always, you shake their hand, you say, "Nice to meet you, Rob." So you say the name to help you remember it. That never seems to work for me. Hopefully, I didn't miss anybody's question. If I ever miss someone's questions, feel free to ask me again. I try I try to stay up to date with chat, but that's something that, as much as I've tried working on over the years, it's still a struggle for me. Anybody have any exciting plans for New Year's? Any travelers or whatnot? I will, of course, be uh, playing in my chess tournament from the 26th to the 5th. So that's my New Year's plan. Change your name to Khan. I mean, if you want to, you don't have to feel obligated in any way to do that. I like to be able to call people by their name, but I also understand the desire for anonymity online. So most people know my real name at this point. This light, the lightest gray here is always a big headache for me to work with because it it's more translucent than the other grays, and so to get a decent consistency with it by adding oil, it makes it even more like translucent. Like, how far do I have to travel? Not very far. Um, I am playing in the Krakow International tournament, and I live in Katowice, which is only about a 40-minute drive and a 70-minute bus ride. So I haven't bought a car yet. Um, Maybe that's something I'll do next year. Who knows? But I haven't bought a car yet, so we're still just taking the bus. Yeah, I don't feel like renting a car to drive 40 minutes. I could rent a car for probably like 200 zloty, or I can pay 200 zloty for two round trip tickets to and from. So I think I'll go with that. But yeah, it's not very far. We've my wife and I's been to Krakow way more times than I can count. Sometimes we'll just go there for the day. We haven't in a while for obvious reasons, but um, yeah, we used to go there just for two restaurants. Vega Totu, which is a Turkish style vegan restaurant, and then uh, Vegano, which unfortunately had to close its doors. There's so many vegan restaurants went out of business because of the pandemic. It saddens me because I mean, there's already like a huge limitation on the number of restaurants that my wife and I can eat at, and I'd say like two thirds of the restaurants that we would eat at are out of business. Um, I mean, vegan restaurants already have a hard time. I can't even tell you how many have went out of business since I've been here. Uh, in the past 5 years, I've seen 15 go out of business. Just a crazy amount. Oh, that sounds like fun, Ozzy. Would I recommend the program for a 13-year-old? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing there's nothing that I've faced that I wouldn't have been able to do at 13. And not to say that I was some kind of like art prodigy at 13 because I don't think that I was. I mean, for me to do what I do nowadays is it's it's not it's not talent. It's just years of practice and learning learning the skill. It was learned. It wasn't some magical ability bestowed on me at birth or anything like that. I was really bad for a very long time. I would have loved to do this at 13. The the skills that the skills that you learn are fantastic. First off, I would have loved to learn this 18 years ago, 19 years ago or whatever. However long ago it was that I was 13. 20 years ago. Yikes. Truthfully, at this stage, it's sort of a paint by numbers to help you develop an understanding of how form is established. And then, of course, you can't paint by numbers gradients. So you do have to spend plenty of time practicing the gradients, creating gradients, but it's really just about time. Pretty much any project, any really anything. I mean, you want to do good with anything. It's all about time. Time is the most valuable resource when it comes to producing good work or getting better. You you just take whatever you're doing and apply time to it. I mean, even if you don't do it properly and you waste time, you spend enough time, you'll still get better. It might not be the most efficient, but you can fix that later. You just gotta learn to spend the time, that's all. You did not find the links. Um, I, there should be like a little button that says show more for the description, or reload the page. Try reloading the page. One of those two options will solve your problem. Product called Relief Band. Um, I just take charcoal. I discovered I discovered the most natural way to prevent or help prevent my motion sickness is to just take charcoal tablets. I had this book. I guess I still technically have it, but it's just not here with me in Poland. Um, I can't remember the name exactly. It's sort of like an encyclopedia, but it's an encyclopedia for I natural natural remedies for everyday ailments. So you have like they're all scientific. They're all scientific. It's not like some goofy uh, off the wall stuff. It's scientifically tested and all that good stuff. Um, and I just looked up motion sickness and that. Like I bought the book many years ago, and um, charcoal tablets was the one of the ways to help with motion sickness. And I've been taking it ever since. Sometimes I forget to take it, and I regret it a lot. But I've dealt with motion sickness long enough to you think I wouldn't forget, but I still do. Yeah, charcoal and ginger. I don't I don't have any ginger stuff, but that's more or less for the upset stomach. The ginger. All right, so I gotta mix up some paint here. So the background for these projects is always the darkest value and the second to darkest value mixed together. So like a 50-50 blend of these two. And they call this an add color. That does not look like enough paint. Alrighty. Let's just grab some of that and get started filling in the background. I guess I'll just do the edges first. This edge here doesn't really matter that much because it's a gradient. Yeah, when you mix, yeah, it's always better to mix a little bit more than you think you need. But as far as color matching goes, when you mix, uh, of course, you'll probably never mix that exact mixture a second time, but you can always blend it. And as long as you get, I'd say if you can get 80% close enough, and then you just mix it, because the same thing is like when you're painting a car and you're doing like a touch up or whatever. Even if you're using the same exact paint from the same exact manufacturer, everything exact, right? There's still there's still going to be a subtle imperfection. So anytime that you would do a touch up on a car, you would feather it into the pre-existing color so that it's not obviously different. And so the same is true here. You just got to get it 80% and then feather it into the rest of it and you'll be good to go. Of course, it gets a little bit more complex when you have a color that you mix out of several colors as opposed to a color that you mix out of just two. I mean, just mixing those two grays together, you can pretty much do that every time the same. Is it challenging to not drag one color into the next color? Yeah, all the paint is wet. The trick is to once you move into the other color, not to move out of it. So when I'm not painting up to the edge of this paint, I'm painting into it, and that allows me to correct the shape. I have that ability to correct any little wonky shape. Uh, and so as I'm dragging the paint, the inside edge of the paintbrush will get contaminated with this color. And so what you don't want to do, you don't want to, like, say here's an edge. If I'm painting along and say there's a different color of paint there, say I'm painting along, what I don't want to do is this. Because what I'll do is I'll drag that paint out. As long as you are staying with that edge, what you're doing is you're sort of pushing up against the other color. And that allows you to get those crisp, clean edges without a lot of contamination. Obviously, you don't want to push that real far or anything. Like, you don't want to bring the paintbrush into the other color like really far or anything, but you can get away with probably about 2 millimeters, believe it or not. And then of course you can't, depending on how far you go into the other color, also depends on or determines how long of a brush stroke you can make. So the less you go in, the longer the brush stroke you can make. But if you go in what I would probably consider the maximum, the 2 centimeters, you have to constantly reload your brush because essentially you have to push the other paint aside and replace it with the other paint. So the more paint that you're pushing aside, the more of the other paint you have to make sure your brush is holding. Because I mean, getting these clean edges is not really as hard as it may appear. Because as you do this and you get more proficient with the balance of how far you can push the other paint aside, essentially you're only drawing it one time. Because the initial painting, I'm a little loose with. I mean, I try to keep it relatively precise, but I'm not super strict with it or anything. So appreciate everyone coming by and hanging out, by the way, keeping me company while I finish up these last couple paintings. Nobody has reached their question limit, by the way, so keep the questions coming. Oh wow, I can't believe it's already been an hour and a half. That's crazy. That's pretty quick for this painting. I mean, I still have to do the gradients, but I'd say the gradients maybe take I don't know, maybe another 40 minutes just doing the gradients. I mean, the real time consuming part is just this initial filling in process, getting the canvas covered really well. What are my thoughts on walnut outlets to help speed up time between layers? Yeah, I mean, there's different types of oils that you can use and alkyds to help the drying time. Um, it's it's all about you're what you're doing, you know. So it's for me personally, I like the drying time of oils with just a little bit of linseed oil mixed in. Most oils are going to get tacky after a day, after about a 24-hour period. And that's going to speed up even more if you're uh, working in warmer climates. So for me, I've never wanted to speed up the drying time of oils because I already felt like they were fast enough. Because I like the slow pace of them. I like the slow pace of the drying time. But of course, if you want to speed it up, then by all means, you know, use whatever additives mixed into the paint that you want. Oh, thank you, Ben. Wouldn't I use a thicker brush for these areas? That is something that you could do. Yeah. I don't really, I don't really see much purpose in it. Um, I like the control in the amount of paint that I'm using. Larger brushes I feel like are a little bit more wasteful. I do have one larger brush. I have this number 10, but I use that for my blending in the gradients. The larger brushes always feel like I'm just globbing a lot of paint onto the paper, and then I have to sit there and work it around. Whereas with the smaller brush, yeah, it's relaxing. I'm not in a big rush or anything, so I got time. Totally up to you to use a larger brush, though. I have on previous paintings, I have used the larger brush, and honestly, I didn't really feel like it sped anything up. I mean, maybe if I used like a 1 inch brush or something, then it would be a little bit helpful. But I also don't like to clean my brushes. So if I can get away with just using the same brush for the entire painting, then I'm going to use the same brush for the entire painting. I have a drawer full of brushes. Like I have so many paint brushes. I'm trying to remember who sent me brushes, but couple years ago, couple years ago, uh, one of my subscribers sent me So many brushes. Because I was doing some acrylic painting live streams, and yeah, I get asked about paintbrushes anytime I'm using them. Uh, like what brush am I using? What brand is it? What are the bristles made out of? Who'd you buy it from? What's your mother's maiden name? Like so many questions about brushes as soon as I start using them. And for me personally, I just don't care. Like paintbrushes, I've yet in my lifetime come across a paintbrush that makes me question whether or not brushes matter. Because ever for like 20 years now, I didn't think paintbrushes mattered. I still don't think paintbrushes matter. What they're made out of, blah blah blah, whatever. Like I've used the cheapest paintbrushes that I could ever use for as long as I've been painting. These are probably the fanciest brushes I've ever used, um, and technically I didn't buy them because you get them in the program. And I don't know. I can't say that they're better brushes than the cheap no brand name pack of brushes that I got off Amazon like 8 years ago. I honestly can't say that they're any better or worse or anything or different in any way. Like, there's only so many ways a synthetic bristled brush is going to work. Like, they're sort of made out of the same stuff, right? Plastic, plastic bristles, essentially, or whatever the synthetic is, not real hairs. um, some painters they have like $100 brushes. No joke, like a single brush costs $100 or something crazy. And for the life of me, I can't understand what that brush does that is so good that it would justify such ridiculous pricing. I just haven't come across anything that can convince me that brushes matter. It just feels like it just feels unnecessary. I don't think I've ever spent more than $5 on a paintbrush on one single brush. And I believe that that may have been a fan brush, like a replacement fan brush or something like that. Because fan brushes they tend to be a little bit on the pricier side of even the cheap paintbrushes. But I have, like I said, I have a drawer full of brushes, 90% of which are completely unused because I just in my head it's like I just don't get what all these paintbrushes are for. Like why do you need 15 different sizes of paintbrushes? Nearly every painting I've ever done my entire life, I've done with like three brushes. One large brush to just cover the canvas, and one brush for blending and one brush for painting. I'd say a number six filbert brush. Can't go wrong with a number six filbert brush. You can do just about everything with a number six filbert brush. Quality of paint really makes a big difference. Yeah, paint quality is a very noticeable thing, especially with oil paint. I'm not big on acrylic paint. I don't like acrylic painting. Um, but with oil paint, there's not a whole lot of ingredients that can exist. It's very much similar to like colored pencils or pastel pencils. You have pigment, you have binder, and that's pretty much it. Um, with oil paint, you have pigment, you have oil, and you have filler. A cheap a cheap paint of oil will be like 50% filler, 45% pigment, and 5% oil. And as you get more and more expensive, you will have a higher grade of pigment and a higher proportion of pigment and less filler, to the point they basically get no filler. And it's just good old oil paint. Yeah, that's I agree. I'd rather spend the money on the good oil paint and surface. So the paint and the surface you work on, that's where I think the money should go with oil painting or painting in general. I mean, watercolor, acrylic, even. Of course, I don't know why you'd want to spend money on acrylic paint when you can just spend it on oil paint and get better paintings. Anything, if I were to paint this same exact thing in acrylic paint, it would still be better in oil. Anything acrylic can do, oil does better. Just remember that. Just remember that, and you'll save a bunch of money on your acrylic paint by buying oil paint instead. Is my touch for painting just as light as pencils? Yeah, yeah, it really is. I mean, with the the touch of bristles, I'm probably even softer. But pressure plays. There's there's a few things when it comes to brush strokes. So you have the direction that you move the brush. So obviously, if I'm moving the brush this way, it's going to be different than if I move the brush like this. So the direction that I'm moving the brush, or if I go like this, uh, that's one thing. The other thing is pressure, obviously, because if I am really, really light, I can do this and then I can widen it, or I can do the same thing on the side. So the change in pressure is something that stands out on a brush as opposed to a pencil. Pencils don't have this tapering or this uniqueness and control. The other thing is speed. So if I go real quick, if I go, you can see the gaps. So speed changes things. So if I do the same thing with the same amount of paint, instead of going really fast, I'll just go really slowly. This gives the paint time. This gives paint and the bristles the time needed to sink into the texture. And I didn't change the amount of paint. When I made this brushstroke here, and I just went fast, I had the same amount of paint on my brush. I didn't use the backside, which I always fill up, and that's what it looks like. Now, I didn't add any paint. If I do the same thing, but I go slow, you can see that I still have a lot of paint on the brush. And just by moving slowly, I get more coverage even with less paint. So speed, direction, pressure, and of course the shape of the brush has a relatively unique uh, influence on the stroke. But I mean, you give me a round brush, I'll make it look like a filbert any day. You give me a filbert, I'll make it look like a flat. There's not the small shape difference has a small difference at the end of the day. I mean, you want it to make lines with a flat brush. Flat brushes are really good for edges, but you can take a filbert brush and get a nice clean line just like you would with a flat brush. So there's not a huge change in what the shape does, but um, knowing the subtle things that the different shapes can do better than others is helpful. I would say 95% of all of my paintings are done with a filbert. This is a filbert, by the way. That rounded edge that tapers in, so it tapers like it tapers this way, and then it's rounded here. And this I think the filbert brush is probably the most versatile brush because it can do anything really. But where it would struggle is dots. So you're not going to get dots with a filbert. That's where a round brush would be much better. So small details or textures that require dots, filbert brush just wouldn't be able to do. I mean, I could probably like try to sharpen it, like sharpen it to a point, but even yeah, see, even that has some directional pathing to it. So yeah, just wouldn't be the best brush choice. Oh, hey there, Jay Hill. The general toxicity of oil paints. So back in the day, oil paints used to be rather toxic, but you know, companies need to be able to sell these around the world, and shipping toxic products is costly and difficult. And so, um, with the more globalization of the economy and uh, pretty much any company ships worldwide. It's just gotten a lot easier over the past 50 years, you know? And with that, they they needed to change things in order to make their products safe for shipping. So a majority of oil paints aren't toxic in any way. Not in the not in the kind of toxicity that you're referring to. That's also going to change based on the brand that you use. All right, got a little bit of work right here to do. I can still see some little pinholes on the canvas. That's why I hold it at a tilt. I can see those pinholes a little bit better. I don't even think you can see them. Yeah, you guys can't really see them. Maybe if I tilt it. Yeah, you see those little white spots right here and a little bit right there. Easier to see when you look at the canvas at an angle. Yeah, it's good enough. All right, I'm going to put that one aside. Grab painting number 20. Now, I'm not done with this, by the way. I didn't do any of the gradients. I am going to be doing the gradients after I fill this one in. Just do all the gradients all at once. Okay, Diane, yeah, you take care. Enjoy the cooking. Alrighty, let's see here. Let's just jump into, I guess I'll just start with the darkest color. It's really just one area with the darkest value here. That's this part here. So this is actually the 20th painting here. This is the last project for block 1. And the paintings, they gradually get a bit more complex. I'm trying to figure out why this one is 20, but like this is supposed to be the most complex, and personally I find it to be the easiest looking anyway. I think it was just glare. I think it was just glare on the top left corner, Ozzy. I just had another glance at it because you mentioned that, but yeah, it's covered well. I think it was just the light shining off the paint. Okie dokie. Now that the outline's all done, just fill this in. One second, I'm gonna get a drink of water. Always forget to drink water when I'm streaming. I mean, I forget to drink water when I'm doing literally anything. If I'm awake, I'm forgetting to drink water. I used to be better at it, but sometimes I forget. Sometimes I forget for so long that when the time comes that I actually take a drink of water, I realize how thirsty I am. I wish all the other gray colors were as opaque as the dark the dark gray. This isn't. I don't. It probably looks really close to black, but this is actually not black. It's just a dark gray. It would be more noticeable if I put black next to it. You'd be able to see that it's still just gray. Next to the pure white of the canvas, it looks even darker. Yeah, you're right, Beverly. I mean, I haven't seen my family in over 2 years now, so I've been I've been stuck in my studio for a long time. I am planning a trip next year though. 100% I am going back to America with my wife next year in the summer because I cannot go one more season without seeing my family. It's just been it's just been obnoxious. And I usually don't it usually doesn't bother me too much traveling, but I just know that as soon as I leave, I'm just gonna have to deal with a bunch of nonsense. Like I'm just not interested. Oh, hey there, Dottie. I mean, the one nonsense is like the one thing that I just cannot tolerate. Like I have no patience for it. There's just a ton of inconsistencies. Let's just put it that way. So many inconsistencies with everything. I won't go into any detail, but I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Even without knowing what I'm talking about, you probably still know what I'm talking about. Excuse me. Okie dokie. Let's jump into the next color. I guess this is a shadow. Quick, somebody asked me a question, so I have something to talk about. It's yeah, it's past the 2 hour mark. So usually when it gets to this point in a live stream, I just have I'm at a complete loss of words. I struggle to think of anything to talk about. And difficult to have a conversation with yourself. Oh no, what happened there? Oh, I got a fuzzy. I have fuzzy on my painting. See it there? Where did that even come from? Oh, hey there, Lisa. Good to see you. How is your week going? All right, almost done with this color. Actually, I have some of this color up here in the stem of the pumpkin. Yeah, see this painting here, I don't know why this is number 20. This is not a difficult painting in comparison to, I don't know, the previous three. I think the bunnies are going to be more difficult than this one. My microphone is still working, right? Is my camera working? Am I still live streaming? Am I still live? Is this working? Chat is so quiet. It concerns me. I am using oil paint. Old Holland oil paint. Yes, it is working. That's good to know. That is good to know that nothing has changed and that things are still working. You guys had me concerned there for real. What's the next step after covering the canvas? Creating the gradients. That's the more difficult step. The process that you go through in the program is to create the add mixtures. And I showed you one of the 3 add mixtures that you make. So for the first block, you get the 4 gray tones, which are named extreme dark, moderate light, and extreme light. So you get 4 distinct values to work with, and the 3 add mixtures that you are allowed to create is a single step in between those 4 values. So you mix the extreme dark and moderate dark to create the value that occurs in between. And you just continue that with the other values as well. You apply that, I forget what they called it, like a buffer. I think maybe they call it a buffer. You know, they try to use technical terms or something along those lines to make it easier to follow. But I'll show you what I mean when I get to that stage. Although I'm thinking, what time is it? Yeah, my wife will be coming home. So I think what I'll do is I'll probably finish up covering the canvas and do the gradients another time. Okay, Ozzy, yeah, you take care. Have great holiday, New Year's, all that fun stuff. Right, medium light. Yeah. Actually, I'll do one gradient. I always like to do the background gradient because that one's the easiest to do. So I'll do that before calling it a day. For most of these projects that I've done for the program, I didn't sit down and paint it all at once. I usually do this foundational layer blocking in, and then I do the gradients like a day or two later. I think my wife works tomorrow. I'm almost certain. I'm not 100% sure, but if she does, maybe I'll just wake up and do another live stream to finish the gradients for both of these paintings. That could be that could be something I do. Does my wife and I have any special Christmas traditions? No, we don't we don't celebrate Christmas. Not like in any way that would be recognizable for it to be called Christmas. Um, we just so in Poland, Christmas is quite a bit different than in the U.S. Um, One thing that won't ever do is gifts. I don't do Christmas gifts. Um, but spending time with family and eating food, that is that is what it essentially is. I don't call it Christmas. I don't pretend to celebrate anything other than just being with family. But in Poland, Christmas is technically 3 days long, and it's more or less just about the food, just about the food and family. And if I were to uh, celebrate any particular holiday, um, that's what I would call our Christmas. But that's about it. The tradition is to have 7 dishes, so 7 different dishes, and I'm not sure. Since we're leaving on Sunday for my chess tournament, I'm not 100% sure if my wife will have 7 dishes, but my mother-in-law will come over. Um, and I don't know what. I hope she's made guamki. I'm hoping my mother-in-law made guamki. I didn't hear anything about guamki being made, but I would love that. I'm probably gonna have to make mayo. My wife will make her super tasty potato salad, and I make I make my own vegan mayonnaise for the potato salad. But yesterday, mm, my wife made kapushniaki, which are a um, seasoned. What's the English word for it? Sauerkraut. Seasoned sauerkraut with onions and mushrooms that are packed into a sort of a croissant-like dough that is like wrapped up and sort of looks like a budding flower, and then they're baked, and that's kapusniaki. That's one of my favorite things. Um, and then I think my wife will probably make rissoles, which are I'm trying to think of what she makes them out of. She used to make them out of lima beans, but now she mostly makes them out of red lentils, I think. But that's essentially a breaded patty that's fried, um, and they're really good. And she made cookies. She made her butter cookies the other day, which are always delightful. So I've been munching on butter cookies for the past couple days, but I haven't told my wife that I've been eating them. But I've essentially lived off of tea and butter cookies for the past couple days. If anything, this time of year just means eating the least healthy that I can for like 5 straight days. And then I spend the rest of the year not doing that. And I don't remember the last time I stayed up past midnight for New Year's, but um, generally New Year's is just here anyway. I think I have. I don't know if I posted a video on my YouTube channel. I for sure did it on my Facebook page, but everybody sets off fireworks for New Year's, so I wouldn't say it's a big deal, but it's eventful, that's for sure. Let's just say that if you have a dog in Poland, the odds are they don't care. They like for fireworks, fireworks don't bother them. Not Polish dogs. Polish dogs are used to fireworks because they need to be. Because there's fireworks just going off everywhere around you the entire time for like 4 hours straight. We won't be in our flat for New Year's, but uh, usually usually we stand out on our balcony and we just watch the all the fireworks happening around us. What about all of you? Do you have any unique Christmas traditions or holiday traditions in general? New Orleans gumbo. I don't think I've ever had gumbo. And I think it's too late for me to try it. I can't imagine there's a such thing as a vegan gumbo because if I'm not mistaken, gumbo is sort of like a seafood medley. Isn't that gumbo like a seafood medley? Yeah, mostly enjoy family. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Oh, okay. What's that Cajun dish then? What's that Cajun dish where it's like a bunch of different seafood in like a soup type thing? Like, I'm not out of my mind that such thing exists. Or maybe people have different gumbo recipes that I don't know. But I know there's like some kind of like seafood medley thing. Maybe it's a goes by a different name. This will be your first Christmas as vegan? Oh, well that's nice. I'm glad he puts in that effort to make some tasty food for you. Congratulations getting through the year vegan. I know the holidays can be a little bit more stressful when you have that particular I don't like to use the word but restrictions. I don't like to think of being vegan as restrictive because I have tasted much better food that's vegan than any food that I've ever eaten in my life. So um, I don't feel that it's very restrictive. But when your significant other is not vegan, uh, it can be tough sometimes for both you and your partner. Apple pie is real easy to make vegan. You can make apple pie with three ingredients. So, or cherry pie. Cherry pie is a good one too. And those are always nice during the holidays. One of the things that I always really liked was leftover turkey when I was younger and I wasn't vegan. Leftover turkey sandwiches. It would just be bread, sliced turkey, lettuce, and mustard. And that was it. And I found that if you just replace the turkey with slices of mushroom, it's basically exactly the same thing. And I never realized that what I actually liked was just the chewy texture with the lettuce and mustard. That's where that's where like 90% of the flavor is. No matter how tasty the turkey was, um, just replacing the turkey with mushrooms instead, still get that same effect. Yeah, going out with friends can be a struggle. Yeah, I trust me, I can totally relate. I mean, I don't have friends or anything, but just going out. I think the hardest part is trying not to feel like a burden. That's something that I think a lot of people struggle with when they make such changes to what they eat, is that you can sort of end up feeling like you're a burden onto the people that you want to spend time with. Because before I was vegan, like if somebody invited me over for dinner, which never happened because you have to know people to be invited over for dinner, but hypothetically, uh, I wouldn't I wouldn't think about what the person's going to cook. I would just hope that whatever it is good enough that I can compliment it and not feel like I'm lying. But when you make, I mean, let's not pretend that it's not a big change to what you would otherwise, what the average person would be eating. When you make those big changes, it can sort of create some difficulty. And some people may even avoid you or avoid inviting you over because they don't know how to make something. And the funny thing is, a majority of people that don't really have any experience with making vegan meals or whatever, vegan friendly meals, they never realize how easy it actually is, because it's really really easy. I mean, essentially all I did to go vegan was take all the stuff that I like to eat: pizza, macaroni and cheese. I mean, even you can have hot dogs. Yeah, they have those veggie dogs. I mean, they're not great, but neither are hot dogs in the first place. But I mean, it's easy to make pizza, spaghetti, mashed potatoes, gravy, any side dish, potato salad. That's easy to make vegan. A macaroni salad. That's easy to make vegan. I mean, at the end of the day, when you realize just how easy it is to make pretty much everything vegan, you realize that you don't really miss anything. Like, there's not really anything missing other than straight up steak. Like, and I would say fish. I would say fish, but when I was in Amsterdam, when my wife and I went there for vacation, we went to what was this? The restaurant didn't have a very fancy name. It was like vegan food market. Like that was the name of the restaurant or something. Awful name. But my wife got the fish and chips, and I think they spelled fish with like PH because it's not actual fish. It's just meant to taste like fish. And I tried a bite of it. I think I've told this story like 4 or 5 times on live streams before, but when I took a bite of it, I I was my stomach like dropped like I was falling or something because I thought for a while that I had just eaten actual fish. And it would have been really devastating to accidentally eat real fish because I've never once strayed from my vegan diet or my vegan lifestyle. Like the day I went vegan, July 3rd, 2009, that day I've never had any animal products past that day. And so um 10 years go by and I accidentally eat a piece of fish at this supposed vegan restaurant. I was really worried. And so I immediately went up to the waitress and I was like, is this really not fish? And she had a good laugh about it because it happens every time. Happens every time somebody has to ask if it's really vegan because I was I was stunned. I just I felt like what I had just bitten into 100% had to be fish. And I have a lot of experience eating fish because when I was younger, my dad would take us fishing and we would eat what we caught and I would get fish at restaurants and sushi is still like one of my favorite things ever. Even though I don't eat real sushi, but I eat vegan sushi. Um, and so I'm even though it's been over a decade since I've eaten fish, uh, it's not something that I would forget. I don't forget what the stuff tastes like, and I don't deny that it was very tasty. Um, but yeah. So, anyways, some people just don't realize how easy it actually is to make tasty vegan stuff. Yeah, I think no gift Christmas is the best way to go. Um, the way that I don't have kids, but I would still do giftless Christmas. Yeah, I mean, I don't if I did Christmas at all, but like I said, I just eat food. Can't really call it what it is. But I'd still do it without gifts because I don't think it's I don't think it I think it's the worst part of the holiday season is the gifts. Um, and instead Instead, I think gifts should be given um, without the feeling of obligation. So, for instance, hypothetically, if I had a kid, then I would reward their good behavior with gifts or a gift, not plural, not gifts. So by the time this time of the year comes around, they're not really asking for anything. Instead, I would use, because I mean, let's face it, as far as a tool to reward good behavior, doing it all at once really doesn't make any sense because if you don't do it immediately or very shortly after the good behavior, then even a 10-year-old's not going to remember the good behavior. So the rewards have to be tied to the good behavior for it to facilitate more good behavior. Or just something that you can be proud of your child doing. So like maybe they do good on their school. They get good reports. I mean, personally, I would homeschool my child, but even that would have a reward system. I don't think people like to admit it, but uh, children are just as trainable as a dog. I mean, so if you want good behavior, you got to be consistent. You know, you got to be consistent. You got to reward it, positive reinforcement, or even negative reinforcement. You know, spray bottle to the face. I don't think many children will like that. Honestly, I'd say a spray bottle to the face. I mean, you don't throw it at them, you spray them in the face, just like you would a dog or a cat. Um, I'd say that's as physical as you'd ever need to get with a kid to deter undesirable behavior. But consistency is key, just like training a pet. I mean, I took I took child development psychology. Like I mentioned a number of times, I was going to be a psychologist before I became a math teacher and before I became an art teacher. So I'm not just making this stuff up. And I think back to the gift thing, the other reason I don't think gifts are good uh, for this particular holiday um, is that growing up, gifts weren't really much of a thing for me. And so when the new year comes around and Christmas break is over and I have to go back to school, all I see all I see are all the gifts that everybody else got and I got nothing. And I just don't think I don't think that receiving them is good for the psychology of a child. And I also don't think that not receiving them when everybody else is. I think that's even more detrimental. Does nobody else have an opinion on this topic? This is like the quietest chat has ever been. I don't know if you guys are taking notes on everything I say or working on your own projects or cooking. Yeah, and some of you may even be cooking, just listening. I imagine I imagine gifts can be quite stressful for the parents as well. You know, trying to afford it, trying to think of what to get, all of those things. I mean, even as a kid, I never I also never understood the pretending that it's from somebody else. Like um the Santa Claus thing never made any sense to me. Especially for like really young kids when you can convince them, right? You can convince little kids that there really is this person that goes around the world giving people gifts and all of that, and little kids will genuinely believe it. And you'll tell them this every year for for nearly a decade of their life, right? And I mean, eventually somebody's going to spill the beans. They're going to figure out that it's all a lie. It's just, it seems like a really bad idea to lie to your kids for like 10 years straight. you know? Just, it seems like a bad idea. I'm just gonna say that. I wouldn't ever do that to my kid. I mean, I wouldn't do that to anybody. I wouldn't lie to anybody for that long. I mean, I make it a point not to ever lie about anything ever. I don't even do the little I don't even do the little lies. There's that um there's that saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I sort of use that same thing but about lying. So if I can't tell the truth, then I just won't say anything. I mean, obviously that would be in the face of like a direct question, not necessarily hiding the truth is very much the same as lying. So not in that manner, but you get the idea. Oh, that's funny, Beverly. At first, I did think that you were talking about your children using a water bottle. I legit probably would use a water bottle, but I would have other punishments too. You know, when I was studying psychology, I was really intrigued by the psychology of children. Um, I mean, back then I had no interest whatsoever in having children. I really didn't have any interest in having children until about a couple years ago, but I have not yet convinced my wife that it's a good idea. Um, but punishment That's a big topic when it comes to child psychology. I mean, I was born in the 80s, so I still know what real punishment feels like as a child. Um, I mean, I think if you're probably anything past 95, you have no idea what a belt feels like, or a spoon, or a switch, or literally anything long enough to swing at you. But um, that type of punishment, there's been there's been enough studies to show that it doesn't work. It doesn't have the effect that even those of us that were punished that way often presume that it had. Because if it had, then in my case in particular, the um, the behavior would have changed. But in my case, and really in all three cases of my two sisters as well, the behavior escalated instead. So it had the reverse effect on all three of us. Of course, that's just anecdotal, but statistically, it's compatible with what is generally found to be in those situations. And so I've always put a lot of thought on how, if I ever had children, how I would punish them, because I think punishment should be constructive, but not in the way of like, I will not pour water on the floor and write that 500 times kind of thing. Not that type of constructive. Something that is more more intense than just timeout, but because timeout I don't think is quite as quite effective either. I don't think that quite does anything. Of course, maybe that's why I'm so patient. I spent my entire childhood in timeout. Timeout and detention is all I did. But then again, I spent all that time out with my friend Casey, and he definitely didn't learn patience. Yeah, I think just like learning, I think everything needs to be. I don't think there ever can be anything that's universal. So learning has to be individualized, and so does discipline. Hopefully, I have enough of this mixture here to finish off the background. I'm gonna have to really spread this paint so I have enough. Running out of this mix. Only have like a tiny bit left. Probably take like another half hour to cover the background. 3.5 hours to cover these two paintings. That's not too bad. I'm not sure what I expected. I sort of initially planned on completely finishing them, but that's definitely not going to be the case as my wife will be home soon. I tried to start streaming as soon as I could, but I wanted to finish editing that video that I uploaded a few hours ago. The time lapse of the Stormy Sea pastel project. I don't know if you guys have seen that video yet, but I posted it, I don't know, maybe an hour before I started streaming. If you did watch it, I hope you liked it. That was a really fun project. Also, if any of you are in the art club, which I'm sure a few of you are, uh, the new projects, both the colored pencil project and the pastel project that we're going to start next month, uh, those projects are uploaded on the website, so you can download the line art and get those all set up, ready to go. Oh, it's going to be super close with the amount of paint I have left. Probably not going to get away with not mixing more. I should have mixed more before I started the background. Just Just didn't feel like doing it. I'm gonna come back and bite me. I'm getting like every little tiny bit of paint left on my palette. My apologies for not being too talkative, but after 3 hours, it's usually pretty rough for me to think of anything else to talk about. Otherwise, I start talking about weird stuff again, like disciplining your children or whatever other nonsense pops into my mind. I can assure you, I have a lot of stuff going, a lot of stuff all the time, 24/7. I sort of look forward to getting older in hopes that as I get older, my brain will slow down and not think about so many random things all at once. It's like um it's like a TV. It's like a TV where somebody else has the remote and they just keep changing the channel. They You see like one line of dialogue and they already know that they're not interested and so they turn the channel to the next channel and it's the same thing. It's just nonstop, nonstop TV changing its channel. Oh, thank you, Elena. Yeah, I just put together a time lapse of all the live streams of the project. A different perspective when you see the whole thing come together all at once. I may actually manage to get this entire background done with like the smallest little dab of paint left on the palette. I just noticed a bug. This bug is stuck. Really, bug? Come on. Ridiculous. Stay away from my painting. Gotta love bugs and dust. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that, Lisa. Well, glad you got things building back up. It would be nice to have your studio spot once more. think I'm gonna be able to do it. I can't believe how far I've spread this paint. I'm just like scooping every last little bit off of my canvas. But I think I'm gonna make it to the end. Are my real estate investments going well? Yes, yes they are. Although I had a furnace, I had a furnace go out last month, and so I had to buy a new furnace, which set me back a little bit, but not too bad. Other than that, not too bad. And heck, my house has a brand new furnace now, so got no complaints. Tenants just signed a new lease. Yep, so close. Almost there. All right, I think I'm gonna make it. I got just a tiniest little dot of paint left. I think I can manage the rest of this. I appreciate y'all hanging out for 3.5 hours now. I know I haven't been too talkative the past hour, but I hope that you've still been able to enjoy the process. Oh goodness, I'm gonna have some extra paint left over. Yeah, I still have tiny little tiny little bit left. There we go. I'll just check it. That's pretty good. A few spots here. not too bad. All right, still have the gradients to do, but like I said, I'm gonna do that later. But I am gonna do the gradients, some of the gradients. Just this one here. So I just take the value that's right in between, create a buffer. And then get some more of that same color. And now I scrub it. Come over here and do the same thing. And let me clean some of this paint off. Take some of the original table color, create another buffer. And then just scrub that. And I guess I'll have to jump to my softer, larger brush. It's hard to do this with the glare. I have a really bad glare right now. Essentially, the trick is to just keep as much paint off of your brush as you can. And get rid of the line separating the values. almost done. I think that's gonna do it. Still not totally satisfied with this gradient, but it's hard to do it at this angle. I don't like to paint flat. It's harder to see things because of the glare. Okie dokie. Well, that's a pretty successful stream, I think. 2 paintings, 1 stream. Can't really put them both in frame, but yeah. Here's the first one. It's not done, just so everyone is aware. I still have to paint the gradients on the rabbits themselves. And that will make them look, well, more like the reference. Same thing with this. None of the gradients are done. Otherwise, it would look more like a pumpkin. But yeah, that's how you do it. This is the tiny little piece of paint that I had left for the background. Anyways, that is going to do it for today. I may end up doing the gradients tomorrow, and if that's the case, possibly live stream doing that. Although it's tricky because the gradients are a lot harder to do when I'm working on flat surface like I am right now. So we'll see. Maybe not. Yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for coming by and hanging out. Really appreciate it. If I don't see you tomorrow, then have a wonderful holiday. Enjoy your family. Have a great New Year's. And I will see you next year. Take care. Peace.